Let's begin with the crackdown on drugs and barons in Nigeria. As this intensifies, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrested 3 visually impaired men operating an illicit drug ring between Lagos and Kano. Now, the NDLEA spokesperson, Femi Babafemi, said another blind member of the syndicate is still at large. Their cover was exposed following the arrest of a blind suspect, a 40-year-old Adamu Hassan, along Gwagwalada Expressway in Abuja with 12 kilograms of skunk on his way from Lagos to Kano. Emeka, let me come to you on this matter. You know, thinking about blind men involved in this illicit activities begs one to worry. What factors, first off, do you think might contribute to individuals, even those with disabilities, being involved in this illegal trade, drug trafficking?
Okay, thank you. Well, it brings me to that expression which some groups worldwide have been trying to push. I don't call people disabled, call them differently abled. So the fact that maybe they have an issue with a bodily function doesn't mean that the entire system is unable to function to the extent that they can, carry out, human activities. So when I saw that story, I just said, look at that, differently abled. In the direction of alleged drug trafficking. So definitely, their situation is being exploited by drug syndicates. Because definitely, it will be difficult to say that they are just running their own show. Definitely, certain people who may not be in that situation might be contributing to this trade, and that's really worrisome, because when you have to, although of course, people involved in criminal activities, wouldn't mind exploiting people with such with challenges, and that's really unfortunate, because these are people that the society would ordinarily regard as being in a quote-unquote helpless state, or a state where they need guidance, they need empathy, they need understanding, they need compassion, they need care. But of course, now they're being exploited as mules, as drug mules, as part of the chain in drug trafficking. I think this is something that's worrisome, because you now find out that the drug agent, anti-narcotics agents will also be taking a closer look at people in that category that, okay, who knows, and that might also lead to stigmatization.
Right.
So I think it needs to be seriously investigated so that such things can be nipped in the bud.
Right. With that being said, GKB, he's mentioned that there are vulnerabilities being exploited for the drug trafficking ring. Well, how can enforcement agencies now work towards preventing their vulnerabilities now being exploited for this same reason?
That's a very difficult thing to do, actually. Don't forget that in the recent past, we have seen disabled people who serve as conduits for gun runners. There are no cases in Lagos in the past where people were arrested who are disabled, to whom guns were given, basically as a guide, so that when an armed robbery is taking place, they will drop the guns with them. They have all the needs of everybody else. They are just disabled. That means they have sexual urges, the need for money, the need to eat. All these are things that they need. Basically. And they are not really above being used or being part of a chain that starts from the very top. Of course, a lot of people will look down and say that, okay, these are social drugs. But people forget that we have an epidemic in Nigeria right now when it comes to the abuse of drug pills,
right?
All the manners that they created. Just recently, an American actor was killed for his reliance on Vicodin. He was abusing something as common as a painkiller. So sometimes we think, when we talk about drugs, we look at cocaine and all that. But once we now change our direction towards people abusing drugs, even the very small ones, then we know that this is not a straight story. Because if they are running errands for the drug lords, this will be for people at their level, fellow blind people, fellow deaf people, people at their social class, who also need the pick-me-up, if there's something like that, that these drugs provide. So I think what they need to do is also what the police is trying to do. Make sure that whenever you penetrate the chain, look for the weakest link, then cut it.
Right.
That would be the best thing to do.
And moving forward from that, what role do you think, Emeka, what role do you think community support plays here in terms of ensuring that these marginalized groups are not, being drawn into situations or criminal enterprises like this?
Yeah, no, just like GKB said, I just remember a story of how drug syndicates actually brought in some drugs in a dead body. That was many years ago. They caught the dead body and stuffed it with drugs, packed it in a casket and brought it into Nigeria. But somehow it was detected, they were detected. So, drug syndicates, drug barons are really desperate. They are very desperate. They can use anybody, like GKB said. So, but it's also that the NDLEA should now look at the fact that if these vulnerable members of society, are involved in this, then the enlightenment campaign should also look in that direction.
Right.
Yes, it's possible for them to be exploited, but it's also possible for an advocacy campaign to sort of break that link and target, get them sensitized through their leaders so that their leaders can also be more watchful. Because it's a situation where somebody in their group could coordinate such activities. I mean, it says a lot about how sophisticated the drug smuggling ring is. So all kinds of things. People do all kinds of things. You'll be surprised to even see, you'll be surprised to see that you might see somebody with a walking stick, but inside is loaded with drugs. Drug anti-narcotics agents have caught such people. There are all kinds of things. They're so desperate. They are so desperate, that they can go to any extent. But the NDLEA should keep up the fight and make sure it keeps busting all these quote-unquote ingenious ways of drug trafficking. Because honestly, it's not just about drug trafficking. It's substance abuse has become a major problem in our country.
Right.
It's really destroying the youths. It's destroying people.
I'm talking about the substance abuse being, destroying the youth, the young population.
Yes.
We also understand recently, also the NDLEA made a find of about 13 billion naira worth of codeine bottles that has been recovered and 14 million pills of tramadol. Now, but this also brings to a broader question of the implications of this large amount, this magnitude of drug seizure. What implications do you see this, the magnitude of this in terms of public health, in terms of safety, in terms of the impact on drug trade? What do you make of this, this magnitude of seizure being found?
Yeah, drug trafficking is one of the biggest problems in the world after terrorism. It's a major problem. It's even linked with terrorism, with money laundering. Illicit flows, financial flows. So you find out that people, whether in rich or poor nations, they are drawn to, unfortunately, substance abuse. And you can imagine, you're talking about tramadol, codeine. These ones are even the ones people buy, people who have the means can procure. What about certain other things that you'll be surprised? People sniffing the smell from pit latrines. The excreta of lizards. Yeah. All kinds of things, mixing all kinds of things. It's a worrisome situation, and you even find youths these days. You see youths. It's a popular expression on colos, and it looks like a joke, but unfortunately, youths are being drawn into this thing. Then, I think NDLEA needs to also look at the effect of social media on drug abuse, because you find out that, for instance, you find out some of these reels, some of these short videos, maybe 30 seconds. you see some of the things being portrayed, sexual acts being portrayed, different kinds of things being portrayed on these things. And it just looks, you know, it looks innocuous. But if you take a look at some of these things, there are hidden messages in some of these reels. And definitely, they've got to say, no, this is not acceptable in Nigeria.
Don't forget our music.
Oh, that's even...
The music industry as well terrible. Has a role to play. So how do you think the government, or rather the enforcement agencies, can nip drug trafficking in the bud with this recent find?
Well, all over the world, the drug trade is winning. Let me use that word.
Unfortunately.
Because they are creating new ways and they are looking for younger clients. Some people as young as 6 or 10 are being driven into using drugs, substance abuse, and that to me is the danger. A couple of years ago, I think it was this British TV station that did an expose on the level of the pandemic in northern Nigeria. You know, northern Nigeria is always underreported. We only barely scratch the surface of what they are going through as a zone. So most of the time, these things are buried because it's not really in the public eye. But what we need to do now, and my message is not only to NDLEA, but to my man, Malam Lagos and Kano, the new Deputy Director General for Nigeria Orientation Agency, because we need to start from there. We've lost our values. Even somebody told me that we have no need to communicate to our children, that we speak different languages, that what we say at our generation is not what they say, and that we may be speaking the same language, but different things are being interpreted. And that to me is the danger, because our values are not their values. The values is somebody wants to buy, I don't know what they call it now, we call it sneakers. I don't know the name they have for it now. Somebody wants to buy it for 10,000 naira and he has no job. But it will be more influence with somebody posting the receipt of 1 million he used to buy one bottle of drink in a bar somewhere. That one has more influence on him than his father or his mother who are trying to put him on the right path.
Right, in a nutshell.
So because we don't really have control over our children anymore. So NOA, under Malam Lagos and Kano, they have their jobs cut out for them.
Indeed.
We must change our orientation, and not simply by talking, by also showing as parents.
Well, let's